Hello, Heart and Soul Collective. On today's episode, we're going to get to know Mariah McKechnie a little bit better. She is a lady boss, a really great friend, a mother, and a business owner, and all the things. And today we'll just find out more about her and how her journey has led her to this point where we are in the position to help rise up other women in business. So sit back and relax and listen up.
Welcome to Heart and Soul, the podcast where we empower and inspire women to lead their best lives, harnessing the power of their hearts and souls. We are Mariah
And Monique,
your hosts and guides on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth.
in each episode, we will dive deep into topics that matter most to you, from self-love and confidence to career development, relationships, and everything in between. We believe that every woman has a unique strength and inner wisdom waiting to be unleashed.
Join us as we cover insightful heart and soul-centered topics and interview incredible women who've overcome challenges, chased their dreams, and found their true purpose. Through all of this, you will discover practical tips, strategies, and real-life stories to help you navigate life's twists and turns.
For whatever season of life you're in, this podcast is your safe space to explore, learn, grow, and possibly even laugh and cry with us. So grab your headphones, maybe your favorite drink, and we'll embark on this transformative journey together.
With heart, I'm Mariah.
And with soul, I'm Monique. Well, hello, Mariah.
Hi, Monique.
I know that we did an episode where we spoke a little bit about ourselves.
Yep.
But this whole episode today is dedicated to you, my friend.
Okay. I'm in the hot seat.
I know you're in the hot seat for sure. So
Yeah.
the one thing that when we did the episodes about ourselves, we didn't really actually go into our backstories or our bios, like why we do what we do or how we evolved to get to do what we are doing today together and separately. And so we got some feedback saying like, well, that's great. You answered questions about yourself, but but we need more. We need more. So today we're asking you for more information.
Okay.
So I just am curious, like, tell me about you, where you were born, your family, all of the things.
I do totally agree that learning somebody's origin story says so much about them. And so I'm excited to share that here today. It's also vulnerable, right? Like telling everything about where you've come from and how you've gotten where you are to right now. So here we go. I'll just dive in.
Please do.
I was born on September 15th, 1978 in Crookston, Minnesota. My parents were living in Grand Forks, North Dakota. My dad was in the Air Force at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. But he had actually just left to go to his brother's wedding. And my mom was staying with her parents in Crookston. While he was on the road, my mom went into labor 2 weeks early. And now there were no cell phones, right?
Right.
So he got to Minneapolis, was with her sister and brother-in-law staying the night before flying out the next morning.
Oh, jeez.
And as he got to Minneapolis, were waiting with the news because they'd gotten the phone call and they were just waiting for him to get there, that he needed to turn around.
Oh, wow. That's a drive. That's a drive.
Yeah. And that was before the speed limit was 70 miles an hour. He had to turn around and drive back to Crookston because the baby was on the way. And the really big part of the story is that he had been driving all night. He turned around, was driving without any sleep, ended up falling asleep at the wheel, and thank God survived.
What?
Back on the road, and he made it 30 minutes after I was born.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and my mom's brother was in the delivery room with her.
Aww.
And that's that. So that's the story of how I came into the world. Thankfully, my father was okay.
Yes.
He got there. My mom wasn't alone. And I was born in Minnesota. So that's how it all went down. And so I'm a Virgo. And I have always just, really thought about that story as like how lucky I am that it all worked out.
Okay.
And then my family, we lived in North Dakota though. So I grew up kind of all over the state. My dad went to law school and we moved around to a couple different locations within the state of North Dakota. My sister was born when I was 4 years old, and it's just the two of us.
Okay.
Now, and
did your mom work outside of the home when you guys were little, or?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Nice.
Until I was in high school.
Okay.
And so she was just like the ultimate homemaker.
Your mom's the best.
Yeah, if Pinterest had been around then, I can't even imagine, because we lived like real life Pinterest. And we were always so creative, sewing, crafting, I'm cooking. I mean, I just grew up in such an amazingly creative, resourceful, dreamlike childhood. It was just wonderful.
That's amazing.
And also always like with this little interesting twist of business. And I think that when I look back of like, how did I end up here? It's like, I should have seen it early on.
Yes.
I used to craft these, this jewelry and craft this hair things and bring them to school in like 4th grade and
try to
sell
hustle
them.
and sell it.
Oh yeah, I was hustling.
You need this.
I was making hair barrettes out of puzzle pieces.
Oh my god,
that I thrifted.
That's awesome.
So there was clearly like an entrepreneurial spirit there early on. My mom's father was a business owner, and so it was there. It was coming out in little bits and pieces.
Yes,
and always planning parties, like birthday parties. Like always had a hand in that as well. So there were some early inklings. And then in high school, we ended up moving to Grand Forks. So kind of made a full circle around the state. But we ended up back in Grand Forks. My grandparents were there and they were aging. And it was just really great to be near them.
Yeah.
And spend some really quality years with them nearby. And at that time, my mom ended up going to work at a party store. And so that was really an interesting transition for us, for her to suddenly be out of the home and working and kind of, getting used to that. And it was within 2 years of that she actually decided with my father to purchase a party store in another city in Duluth.
Oh, where we live.
Where we live now.
Yes.
So that's a whole
woven
thing. Tale.
Yeah, right.
But
we'll come back to that.
That was another huge transition for our family because now she's not only working, which was an adjustment, but now she's a full-on business owner.
Yeah, she went from
like
no job, just own
straight boss,
right?
And in a city 4 hours away. So not without complication. That was, but that was a choice that made a lot of sense because it was the only available location for this particular franchise.
Oh, sure.
And we loved Duluth. We were a family that was always like planning trips to Duluth. We had this tie to Lake Superior. It felt like the ocean. I should mention my father was from Massachusetts, so like he loved seeing the lake and feeling like it was really a nautical environment. Yeah, the hiking. I mean, Duluth made us so happy. I remember coming here in high school and like, for whatever it was about Duluth then and still today, I could wear whatever I wanted. I could be whoever I wanted, and I felt welcomed in this town. And so it just held a special place. So now there was a business there, and I was getting ready to go to college. So but your
family is still living up in...
We're still living in Grand Forks.
Yes.
So she would come over to Duluth about every other week,
okay,
and spend a couple days and then come home. And so we worked it out. But enter spring 1997. And that date is really important because we live in Grand Forks, North Dakota, has a river that flows north.
Yes.
But when a river flows north into Canada and it's overflowing its banks and there's ice dams up ahead, it floods.
Shoot.
So we had lived, in fear of flooding and in different stages of flooding for all of the time that we were in Grand Forks. It was always a spring threat.
Sure.
But in 1997, it was ultimately what they call a 500-year flood.
Oh, wow.
Literally took down our entire life. So really? It's a pivotal moment in all of our lives, and anyone who lived in Grand Forks at that time. Yeah. We, forever changed by it. But I had just been accepted to college, and my father and I were planning to fly out for an admitted students weekend in Vermont, where I ultimately went to school. And this flooding was happening. And as the week went on, in April 17th was the ultimate day that everything went down. But we were sandbagging.
Oh, wow.
School was canceled. Like the
Oh,
whole town was mobilizing around
yes.
this flood. And we lived across the street from the river. Also important
Oh,
point.
no.
Um, And so as everything was falling apart, and we're supposed to leave to fly to Vermont, and I remember like standing there with my mom and dad and my sister and our 2 cats and going, what do we do?
Yes.
And the bridge was about to close to
Oh,
Minnesota.
my goodness.
And basically everybody was evacuating. We knew we have to
Okay.
leave anyways.
And
Like
your house is
everybody's
a
evacuating.
block from
The
the
house across the street from the river. My dad's law firm is in the floodplain, and we just have to leave. So my mom and sister and the 2 cats get in the car, and they head for Crookston, and they have to cross the bridge before it closes, and they end up getting
Wow.
across like within 10 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
But again, remember, like cell phones, hardly a thing
Yes,
even
yes.
then.
Right.
So we don't know that they made it until they can get there and call us.
So
Okay?
scary.
So now it's the middle of the night. My dad and we decide that we will just evacuate to the airport and fly out because there's nowhere for us to go.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And
Wow.
we drove out of town that night thinking we don't know what we'll go back to.
Wow.
And we flew to Vermont in a bit of a state of despair, and then
Yes.
watched the fires break out, which burned down our downtown.
Oh,
was
my
really a
gosh.
lot.
Fires?
I can't believe it. It's like, yeah.
Yes.
So fires broke out in the flood and burned a large swath through downtown. And the interesting story my parents always tell is like, then we went into the financial aid office at the college, and we're like, well, we're going to need some consideration here
Yeah.
because we don't even know what we have
Yeah,
anymore.
and we
So
don't have a
that was
home address.
interesting. Yeah, no. And interestingly, it was 6 weeks before we returned to that town. So
Oh, my goodness.
it was 6 weeks. We then went to Minneapolis, and we went to Crookston, and we sat about 30 minutes away
Okay.
for 6 weeks waiting until they gave the all clear to return to the city because the
Wow.
water, it's
Was that high?
completely flat floodplain. There's nowhere
Okay.
for the water to go. It was just sitting. So, oh man, that's a whole thing. But to live through a natural disaster is truly
Yes.
where this comes full circle of like life experience.
Mm.
I went through that phase of losing it all, not knowing what's,
Yeah.
like not knowing what you have and realizing
Right.
what's important, and, leaning on your family, like watching my parents have to build and rebuild their businesses. It was hugely pivotal moment in all of
Mhm.
anyone's life that goes through it. So I have so much appreciation for all of the resources that then came our way through I just think about like the Red Cross and the Salvation Army bringing us meals and like all of the things that had to happen to get
I
us
can't
through that and
imagine.
to rebuild from that. And just the resourcefulness that we had to have to
It's like
survive.
survival. That survival mode kicks in and you're like, okay, we're just living day to
Day
day,
to day,
minute by minute.
one day at a time.
Yeah.
Yep. And I got lucky out of the deal because I then went to college. So by the end of the summer, we were sort of moved back into somewhat of a home while it was being renovated.
Okay.
And I got to pack up and leave.
Wow.
My sister and my parents then lived through that. And that's always been, a place that our lives went in different directions.
Right.
Because they were left behind to rebuild and
Lot
live
of
in
work.
a community that was seriously traumatized.
Yeah, and mourning, I imagine.
Yeah.
You're grieving, right.
And so I left for college in Vermont. So I went to school in Middlebury, Vermont,
Okay.
Middlebury College. And I got to then go into like the best 4 years ever of being in
You
this
escaped it.
absolutely charming, idyllic Vermont city at a small private liberal arts college where I had the most incredible education, met amazing people, and I got very lucky there, and I made the most of the experience that I had in
Right.
front of me. So
What did you go to college for?
yeah, so I was a political science major
Okay.
and a French minor,
Wow.
and then I studied abroad in Paris my junior year, and I actually picked up an art history minor while I was there.
Wow.
As I realized, like, I could be taking classes in art history, which I really love, while studying in the museums directly in front of the paintings I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
right.
it was like, yeah, duh.
Right.
And that was some inklings for me too of like, I really love I really love the arts and design and creativity. And again, like connecting these pieces from my past and the early years of my life. And then after I graduated, I stayed on and worked at the college for 2 years in Vermont. I had a really great opportunity to work for the school, and I learned a lot in that job. I was a director of residential life, essentially housing coordinator.
Okay.
I learned a ton about working with people. Very complicated moving of people from one room to the next, and sequencing it, and dates and times, and
events.
all these things that ultimately are very beneficial to have later in life. And the really pivotal moment here is that I actually also started working on the side for the college catering team. And the catering would do weddings. So there were a few different properties that the college owned, and they would have weddings. And so one weekend I was booked to do bartending for a wedding at the mountain campus. It's called Bread Loaf. And it was the most incredible wedding that I was standing there watching happen in front of me. And I couldn't get over it. I was just like, that was amazing.
Like
and
perfection.
I just like want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And I didn't know how, or I didn't know, that wasn't like I had a plan to, but it just in the back of my head, like that was a pivotal for me. And so I really enjoyed just that little side gig and seeing these beautiful weddings and working at them. From there, I actually was recruited to join a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. So I had the opportunity to head there. And interestingly, not political, have not used that degree really since.
Yeah, right.
But I made some amazing connections through the college, and I had an opportunity to go do some management consulting in D.C. And thought, why not? That sounds like the most fun ever. I love that city, and I had a lot of friends that had moved there after college. And it was just an exciting place to be young and a young professional.
Yes. Okay, hold up.
Yeah.
Wait.
Okay.
We've just skipped any sort of love life.
Okay. Well, we'll
stuff.
get there. We'll get there.
We will? I mean,
Yeah.
you're just telling me
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
didn't have
yeah.
any love life before.
Oh, come now. I was focused on my studies.
Oh, you're
yes.
Okay.
Well, along the way, I did meet my current my husband, my husband.
Yes.
And he was the best friend of one of my college friends. And so we met my senior year, and we were instantly besties. Like, just immediately, it was just somebody that I really wanted to hang out with all the time. He lived in Boston at the time, and we would hang out there. We were always visiting all of our friends all over New England.
Like friend circle.
New England is so small. Like, you can go visit somebody in 2 states over in 2-hour drive. So we were getting together regularly. And the important part of this story here is that I actually suggested when I'd gotten the job in DC that, well, he should move there too.
And why did you suggest that?
Because I thought that would be the most fun ever. And I thought, obviously, why not? Why not change up your whole life and come to DC for your friend? And so we moved in as roommates. And we thought that would be just so convenient.
Of course.
And we had the best time ever. We came into that life. We still have best friends that we met that first year of living in DC.
Yes.
That we're actually headed to visit in a couple of weeks. And like, we just lived life so hard and full at that time. And it was really magical. And ultimately, we fell in love, and without even knowing it. We didn't even know it.
That's like the perfect way to have it happen.
Yeah. And when they say like you should marry your best friend, like that's not a joke. That is the real deal. So we really were each other's best friends, and we were roommates. And ultimately I took the biggest leap of my life when he just got down on one knee and asked me to marry him.
No clue.
Yeah, that was not what I thought was happening.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah, that really happened. And I just remember being there in that moment. At first, I said to him, like, if this is a joke, it's not funny.
Yes.
'Cause he's a funny guy. But,
yes.
And he was dead serious that the only way that we could move forward was married because our friendship was too important to risk it any other way. And
Oh,
I had to agree. So 18 years
oh,
later,
oh,
we're
so
still
sweet.
married and still best friends. And yeah, that was a big leap of faith.
Very big.
But
Yes.
thankfully, he's let me start planning the wedding like immediately after that. So
He got
clearly,
you.
this wedding thing was just like
In
part
your
of
blood.
my
Mhm.
my life.
Okay, so you're
And
both living
so
in DC.
yep, so
You're
legit.
working,
Mhm.
and then you get engaged. You start planning
Yep.
a wedding, and you're both working. Where's he's working, and where are you working again?
Oh, he worked for a consulting firm in the IT space, and
Okay.
I was working for a management consulting firm. And we just we're having a lot of fun with
Mhm.
friends and
Mhm.
just busy full lives. And we
Okay.
planned a wedding. We got married in DC.
Yes.
And in that process, about 2 months from the wedding, I realized I don't know exactly who's going to do all these things that I have planned. Like, who's going to get the venue squared away and set up while I'm getting my hair and makeup done? Who's, I just like,
Oh,
all of a
yes.
sudden I'm starting to put the logistics together
Yeah,
and
you're like,
thinking,
wait. Yeah.
there's a missing piece here, and I need a coordinator.
Yeah, I
I
need
need
some
a wedding
help.
planner. I need help.
Yes.
So I ended up hiring a gal. Her name was Laura, and she saved the day. She literally was like the
Thank
hero of the
goodness.
whole wedding.
Yes.
She came in, she pulled it all together, she pulled it all off. I didn't worry about anything. It was an epic weekend in DC in the middle of torrential rainstorms.
Oh, wow.
But clearly, good luck on your wedding day. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That role that she just played,
Yeah, huge for you.
I want that.
Yeah.
I just knew it. I was like, wait, this
Yes.
is where all of this like wedding dabbling
Yes.
or thinking about had come together. And I'm like, I need to do that.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
That for our listeners. So you weren't really. I mean, I think you were an employee for a while, but you've early been a self-employed person,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah, because I worked at the consulting firm for 3-4 years. And I mean, I maybe, I have worked for
Yes.
other people, but I was in my late 20s when I
Okay.
went out on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that said, how was that? Was it ever like, this is the thing, I love this so much? Or were you always that entrepreneurial itch,
Yeah. I mean, I think I had the itch, but I also, always had really great work relationships.
Okay.
I had amazing bosses that I learned from. I was given just a lot of opportunities to grow and lead in the roles that I had, or I took them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always like figuring out my own path and putting myself like in front of opportunity.
Okay.
So I wasn't like,
You weren't like dying to be an entrepreneur
no,
quite yet.
no, that, I
Right.
mean, in the road that I had seen of being an entrepreneur, of like watching my
tricky.
grandfather and my
Yes.
mother, like I looked hard,
Yes.
so it wasn't like that was what I was chasing
Mhm.
necessarily.
Mhm.
And I thought all of a sudden like this wedding passion was something I needed to listen to.
Yes, because you
So
loved it.
yeah, and I threw out to the gal that I had worked with for my own wedding that I would be willing to help her on the side. It was just like, I
Oh,
got time, I got free
yeah.
time, So I started working alongside her and doing some weddings of my own under her brand, and very quickly realized, oh, this like
This is
I like
amazing.
this. This
Yes.
is something that I could see building. Well, at that same time, my husband and I had bought a condo in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and we decided that, well, we had a friend who had a baby, and we babysat the baby, and we were like, this is adorable, and we should get one. Like, that was, I remember it so vividly. I can picture what he was wearing that night, and he was just like precious little 5-week-old baby, and we were like, let's get a baby.
Let's get one because it's that easy.
It was easier than we realized it was going to be.
Oh.
1 month later, I was pregnant with twins.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So master manifester.
We manifested the hell out of the babies. That changed everything because
yes.
the trajectory, the plan, like, we're living in this city in a condo,
can't imagine.
now we're having 2 babies.
Yeah, not going to work.
That all went up in the air.
Yes.
But we were very excited.
Oh,
I never had a dream to have twins. That was not like a thing. I'll meet people all the time who are like, I want twins. Like, it didn't even cross my mind, but they were coming. And so we just jumped full speed into like building the life that we wanted to raise our
Aw,
family in and
yes.
getting excited about building a family. And so I did my last wedding when I was 5 months pregnant with the twins,
Wow.
which felt like full, 9 months pregnant.
I can't imagine.
And then they were born a month early
Okay.
at 36 weeks, but they were 6 and 7 pounds. So they were
That's huge.
big babies.
Yes, for
Yes.
twins?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So identical twin daughters, Lily and
Aw.
Josephine. And they just came into the world like perfect and healthy
Mhm.
and
Beautiful.
sassy as hell.
Yes.
So we, pretty quickly then realized, well, my homing mechanism went off strong. I was like, Mom,
Yeah. Help.
not only because I needed help, but mainly because I just couldn't imagine not having her there every day, not having like
That's
our family,
sweet.
my family involved in like
Yes.
raising of them. My sister was living a couple blocks away from us in DC. And so, it was hard to leave her, but I just knew like my Midwestern upbringing was
Mhm.
so
There's a
suddenly
pull.
strong.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be near my parents. And so thankfully my husband went along with this plan.
Right, because he's from the East
'Cause
Coast.
he's from the East Coast. He's from upstate New York. His parents were in transition, retiring themselves to Florida. And
Okay.
we looked at the map and we evaluated all of our options and we decided on Minnesota.
Okay.
So we did move to the Maple Grove outside of the Twin Cities for a couple of years. We kind of in a whirlwind had to buy a house in a weekend, basically.
Oh, wow.
Sell a house, buy a house,
Jeez.
move our whole life cross country. It was a bit of a blur
With babies.
with little babies.
Yes.
And so we ended up, in a suburb.
Okay.
And he was able to keep his job
Okay.
and work remotely, which
Yeah, that was way before.
way back. Yeah.
You could do that.
But in the IT space, that wasn't that uncommon.
Okay.
And the next thing you know, it was about 2 years later, I wake up one day and I'm like, I'm living in my personal nightmare.
Oh, no. Why do you say that?
Well, I was like living in a vanilla suburb
Oh,
in
yes,
Minnesota.
yes.
And like,
I
it
know, I've been
was the
there.
perfect
Yes.
thing for that moment
Yes.
with little ones. And
Mhm.
but I wasn't working at that time either. I just I was full-time mom. There wasn't really
Oh, okay.
time for
Okay.
anything
Well,
else.
2 babies.
Yeah. And I loved being full-time mom. Absolutely. Like that was not the nightmare of it at all. It was just all of a sudden, as they didn't need me as much, I was
Mhm.
realizing, what am I going to do next?
Right.
Like this is just been a blur.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I'm coming out of it and going,
Well, what about me?
what is even going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got busy working alongside my mom. I got busy.
And she's still running the business in Duluth. the
Yep,
party
she's
store.
back and forth from Duluth.
And where was she living still?
Back and forth between Duluth and the cities. They
Oh,
also
in the
had
city.
a
So
place
they
in
had
the
moved to the
cities. Yeah.
cities. Okay.
And so I was just there to help because she was busy and we were just doing everything with her and I and the 2 babies. And
Wow.
oh my God, the best memories ever of that time period, to be honest. And having so much fun with the kids. And my sister got engaged. And now I was like, well, maybe this is my chance to step back into the wedding world. It had been
Oh.
2 years
Yes.
that I hadn't done that.
And you could help, right?
I could help. And she
Yep.
wanted a Minnesota wedding. So
Oh,
I was like,
nice.
okay, I got this. Let's do it, So my mom and I and my dad and the twins set off on an expedition to find a wedding location for her. I just remember every minute of that trip up the North Shore of Lake Superior. And so chose her wedding, was at Lutzen Resort and did her wedding that summer. And just from that moment launched my business.
Wow.
It was like, this is it. I am going full-fledged
you felt it.
as a wedding planner.
Yes.
Serving this area because I just fell totally in love with Lake Superior and the North Shore. And I also saw a gap. I saw in that planning process, like nobody's doing this.
No.
The idea of a wedding planner was like, a what now? Like
Okay.
there wasn't anybody. And I just thought, this industry is going to grow in this area.
Yes.
But it's just so beautiful and
Yeah.
the destination.
People are going to want to
wedding.
come here.
People are
right.
going to want to get
Yep.
married here, and I can help them. And I want to build something that is designed around planning weddings.
Yes.
And so I threw shingle out And the party store was still in existence then. And so that was a great place to be able to base camp out of. You know,
Oh,
I was
yes,
able
for
to
sure.
use and work alongside my mom to use that business to support this one. And, you know, that was huge. I couldn't have started it and grew it as quickly as I did if I hadn't had that.
A good foundation.
100%, like
Yes.
all the weight of her experience too, side by side. And those early years were so memorable. They were so much work.
The learning curve, right?
We learned so much because I didn't only decide to become a wedding planner, but I thought, why not also teach myself to be a florist?
Oh, well, I mean, most people think that.
Personally do all the decorating
Oh, wow.
for all of these weddings.
Wow.
I mean, I'm going to be there anyways, right?
Yeah,
So,
and maybe I'm going to
why
get it
not?
the way I want it.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so one by one, I would just mastermind these weddings. And I got so lucky. I would meet these clients who were willing to put it in my hands and trusted me with the outcome. And through that, I
Wow.
literally, my mom and I taught ourselves to be florists.
Wow.
We assembled a arsenal of decor that at one point lived in my basement. And I just sank our entire, lives
Yeah.
into this.
So how old were your girls then when you started this?
They were 2.
Oh, so they were little. They've
Mhm.
grown up
Yeah, they're
with an entrepreneur for a
16
mother.
and a half now.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they were just toting along. So we would drive up. I lived in the cities.
Yes.
So we would drive up to Duluth. My husband, the girls, and my dad would go to their house. My mom and I would keep going further north up to a resort or stay in Duluth and work at one of the venues here. But we were basically, we were just like mobile. We had my minivan. It was full of flowers. It was full of tree stumps. We just were freestyling it and we were laughing and having
a great
the
time.
most amazing memories.
Yes.
And little by little just built the brand, built the name, built the reputation of quality
beautiful.
and dedication. And just I just always committed to success of an event. There's no room for failure in other person's wedding. Like it's just unacceptable. So, and because I had that attitude,
Mm-hmm.
I built that reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got about 4 years in, and at that point was probably doing about 60 weddings. I'd started to grow a team under
Wow.
me. I'd started to bring on people because the demand was there. And I realized I needed a place in Duluth to hold
Yeah, other than a
this
party store.
decor. Yeah.
Right.
So we kind of outgrown the back room of the party store.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah, we got to get out of here. And so ended up renting a space in downtown Duluth on Superior Street that was we called it the Vault because it had this amazing bank vault in the back of it.
Yes.
And that was, a huge leap to take. That was a
Right.
massive leap to say, we're going to rent something.
Right.
Now we have to
Like,
guarantee
ooh, we're big
income,
time.
right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like now we have to fill
We
the
have to pay
space.
rent.
And so we dove into that, making the space our own and building. And then that summer, actually spent many a night sleeping in my office because it was just easier than driving home.
Yes.
So, when you talk about it to an entrepreneur about you literally have to throw yourself in,
Well,
you
yeah,
have to live it, breathe it, blood,
Yes.
sweat, and tears. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Done all that.
We should probably clarify too, the drive from Duluth to the Twin Cities is substantial. So
2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's not like
3
you
hours.
could just go home
Yeah.
at night.
And my parents live about 45 minutes outside of Duluth. So I didn't have anywhere
Yes.
right in town.
So you slept on your office
I had
floor.
a futon. I had a pretty nice futon.
Primo futon.
Yeah, but you do what you have to do.
You
And
do.
and you can look back and think well, that was crazy. But
Yes.
I don't regret it at all. I have only the best memories of that time.
I love
that. And then just to see how you can evolve, through it. Well, at
Mhm.
that point then, we realized as a family, my husband and the girls and I, this is complicated. And he was traveling full time at that point as well. So
Wow.
we're both coming and going. I'm leaving Thursday to go to Duluth to do weddings. He's flying in Thursday night. I'm coming home
Never seeing each
Sunday
other.
night.
Yeah.
He's leaving Monday morning.
Yeah.
I mean, we were seeing each other 3 hours a week max, and
That's hard.
and then sleeping. So it was hard. It was really tough time in marriage and in life, and things were just starting to get harder than anybody could want them
Yeah.
to be. And we had to make a decision of what to do next. And ultimately I said, I think we should move to Duluth.
Makes sense.
And thankfully he didn't disagree.
Hopefully he liked it here too.
He claims he didn't even know what was available to him in Duluth because all he ever did was drop me off and then go to my parents' house. So or sleep in my office. So I pledged to him that summer, 2015, I would show him the best sides of Duluth, and I would show him why living here would make sense.
Yeah, for a family.
And so I did. I worked hard at that. And by the end of that summer, we rented a house on Park Point, which is an island right in the middle of Duluth on the lake. And we moved our whole life up here. And
wow,
it was like the pivotal memory there is that we moved into our house and we had this army of people to help us because I had built all these friends and relationships and employees and people here. I had a community here, and that was why I knew I needed to move up here. It was like I was building the community here. I wasn't building it in Maple Grove. I was leaving, you know,
and he wasn't
there either. Right. And I really realized like what I needed was community. And when everybody showed up to move us into our new house, I realized, all right, I knew that confirmed it, you know?
Yes.
And then we walked across the street to the beach on Park Point, and we jumped in Lake Superior, and we took a picture as a family with the 4 of us in the lake. And then we knew we were in the right place. That's like awesome. It was like everything turned around at that point. You know, there have been plenty of hard days since, but it was the right move. Yes. And I had not grown up loving where I lived in North Dakota. It's a tough spot. Like it's very isolated, but it was important to me that my children grew up loving where they lived.
Yes.
And they have appreciated that from every day that we've lived here. And even still, like they talk all the time about just how lucky they are to live in Duluth, this beautiful place, or to come home to Duluth from, traveling the world. And they're like, well, look at this place that
I know. It's fantastic.
It was a neat to be able to give them that. Like we chose this
the
place.
Childhood. Right.
And then business has just grown and evolved ever since. Yes. You know, we were going great guns, building, just an inventory, hundreds of events, tons of employees, learning as I went along, making it up as I went along. Fake it till you make it has always been a motto that I swear by. And just doing our best like every single day. And I had started to feel pretty burned out. This was in 2019. I was starting to kind of like search personally for
How long had you been
So that was since 2010. So it was almost 10 years.
Okay. Yep.
And I, things had just started to get complicated. And
well, every weekend and holiday doing events
exhausting.
And yes.
Yeah. And like I had also been working alongside my mom in the party store side during that time as well. And that was tough. Retail in 2008, between 2008 and 2016 was a really tough time.
Okay.
And so we had to make the tough choice to close that store and to move on from that. So I had that going on. And I was grasping for direction. I was grasping for, again, that community, that connection to like, how do I know how to do this? And at that time, I was thankfully connected to a coach at the Entrepreneur Fund. And I started working with her. And that was the first time I'd had somebody like help me figure out what I needed to do. And through coaching of just really just reflecting back what I was already saying to her. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
And I was like, oh, this is really important.
Yes.
And then it was suggested to me that, I could really benefit from a mastermind group. And you see where we're going with this?
Yeah, I see.
And I was like, okay, what's that? And, you get together with a community of other business owners and share. And I was like, yeah, I like people. Like, I like community. Clearly, there's a theme here. And so I joined the mastermind group, and then I met you.
Yes.
But it was that, again, pivotal moment. Like those early years of entrepreneurship, you're just grinding, you're figuring it out.
You don't even know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, but you know what you love and you're drawn to it. But then all of a sudden you've done that so much, you don't love it that much anymore.
Yes.
It's complicated.
Yes.
And, but I was really, really approaching a bad burnout. In 2019, and lo and behold, what happens next?
World event. Newsflash.
And the pandemic just brought everything in my life to a grinding halt. All of our lives.
Yes.
And in the events industry, like done, dead stop for
years.
About 3 months of dead stop.
Okay.
And then into the limbo of can we, can't we?
Yes.
For 2 years after that.
Okay.
And I mean, I hit the wall of like, I'm out, I'm done, I'm throwing in the towel. I don't want to do, I don't want to do this. Like I was already burned out. But but I also spent a lot of that time recovering from my burnout. Like I was so grateful for the time to spend with my children. I was so grateful for the time to spend with my husband. He had also still been traveling full time and was grounded as well. And so for the first time in 10 years, we were just all there together in the house.
Right.
And we loved it. We cooked, we did crafts, we exercised, many of the things that people dove into. We baked bread. Like, we were living the quarantine life with everybody else. And then one thing that I did with my team during that time that changed everything too was we held a standing everyday meeting, 10 a.m. to just hop online, see each other, check in, and figure out what next. And so whether we were trying to still work on things, I mean, we had a lot of clients we were still trying to help figure out, could they even get married? Was
right.
Like, we were
Should we
working during that time,
right. Yes.
Even though we couldn't have events. And we just took it one day at a time, and we would hop on and we would just make sure everybody was doing okay emotionally. How can we help our clients?
Right.
What do we do next? And how do we best use this downtime? And we realized like we had such opportunity in having kind of really stripped everything back. To be strategic about how we put it back together.
It's like that reflecting piece.
Yeah.
Right.
And we didn't waste that time. Like we were taking a break, definitely like slowed our pace of life way down, but we were very thoughtful about how we spent the time and then how we rebuilt out of it. So after my crisis of I'm out, I'm I'm throwing in the towel.
Yes.
Which I'd reached out to one of my coaches along the way, and I'm so grateful for her counsel. I was able to go and just sit with her for a few hours and like weed through how I was feeling and weigh my options. And that was huge. I was able to leave there and decide, to take it one day at a time. What I decided out of that was like, you don't have to do anything rash.
Yes.
You don't have to decide today.
No.
You can take it one day at a time
until you know better
and lean into what feels right and aligns with what you want next.
Right.
And so some really valuable, I had been running full steam ahead all that time, and I had been pounding square pegs into round holes that whole time. And I was just going to make it work. Like, to get out of my way, I'm going to make it work.
Trying to prove yourself too,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like have to put your place in the world. And
I thought, maybe I don't have to do it like that. And maybe that I can be more gentle, thoughtful, and not trying to prove anything and just be very
like intentional.
Yes. I mean, I was journaling a lot during that time and just like, let's try something different, which was a big flex for me in my personality. But it's like tapped into the healthiest side of my personality. So I talk a lot about the Enneagram. I should have said in the beginning, I'm a Virgo and an Enneagram 7. And Enneagrams, when they're unhealthy, are just flying around, avoiding all possible disappointment by filling their lives with nonstop activity, essentially. Like they're the life of the party.
Yes.
But that's in an avoidance, right? And instead of, in a healthy 7 is very optimistic, very, much able to see their way through things, but they're also able to pause and be still. And I finally had that opportunity to pause and be still and be thoughtful.
Yes.
And then put all of the positive energy into something that was the right thing, not just the thing that I could do because I could pound that pig in that hole. And from there, my entrepreneurial journey has been so much more fulfilling. So much more grounded. It has grown beautifully.
Yes.
And I never could have imagined to be, in the seat that I am today, 4 years later, or how I will go to wherever I go next, is way more exciting because I know that path and that journey will be with that same intentionality and ease and joy and all that. So, it's been really interesting, in every time now that I think about adding something new, like I just look at it from that point of view. Of like, could I build this one day at a time? So we actually last year in 2022 purchased a historic building in downtown Duluth, directly across the street from our original location in the vault.
Didn't go too far.
We did not go far. And that was the same way that decision came about is, okay, we need to expand. What would that feel like? What could that look like?
Mm-hmm.
We watched for signs from the universe of where that was supposed to happen,
Yes.
and literally walked out the front door one day and was like, what about there? We approached buying a building with just absolute lack of resistance. Like, if it's meant to be, it'll be.
It'll work out.
It'll work out. Next thing you know, we had the keys in our hand. We approached renovating this historic building with that same mentality. Like, let's not make this hard. Let's make this fun. Let's make this enjoyable. Let's build a space that brings us absolute like joy. And that was amazing. I loved getting to work in interiors, and
you're so good at it.
Something that had really occurred to me in burnout, and then in that process of renovating, was I had been doing so much creative designing in weddings around moments that like the day was done and gone. I mean, the memories lived on, absolutely, and we were building that. But I would set up these elaborate events and tear them down a matter of
it's like
hours
a moment
later.
In time.
And that was very wearing on a person physically and mentally of like, nothing I build lasts. Like it lasts in photos and it lasts in memories, but it's not it doesn't physically last. And so the renovation filled that void for me, like really like gave me something to chew on with like, okay, I can do something that we can continue to enjoy for more than a matter of hours.
Yes.
And so now we are just living into our space with multiple businesses. I just launched a new brand. So I have Northland Special Events, the parent company, and we focus on the corporate events, nonprofit events, social events.
Perfect.
True North Weddings is the brand new division, and that is focused on wedding planning and wedding coordination. Superior Blooms, our floral brand, that my mom and I in the back of my van flinging flowers has built into a full-scale event floral business. And then the Vault Event Decor, which is a rental business with a beautiful warehouse and is completely focused on curating and customizing decor for events. It's crazy. And I'm not done. Let's be honest.
No,
like,
you're not. You're too young to be done. I have
created more capacity in the structure that we've built to add. And so now I'm just weighing my options of what is the best direction to head next.
Well, and the building that you did purchase, you are now one of the tenants. So you're also now a landlord.
Yeah.
And you have tenants in the building that you own. So you also have that too, you and your husband, right?
Yeah. So we are learning the whole journey of being in the business or the building management space or the tenant management and taking that on, and thankfully has been awesome. We're recording in the studio in the building right now. And it also gave me space to play with. So, there's some spaces that I'm excited to see what we could do within and build from. Meanwhile, my daughters are amazing. They work for us in the business. They absolutely grew up in it. They were at weddings from the tiniest age. They used to wear these little wedding dress costumes.
My gosh, I can imagine.
Oh my gosh.
So
yes,
cute.
because we had a party store, we had a Halloween business. So they got their hands on these bride costumes and they wore them every day. They are just my biggest cheerleaders, and they recognized like at the moment they needed me most, like which was in 2020. I mean, it all came together at that same time. Like I reprioritized them. And now with them working in the business, it's really beneficial for me because they get how hard I work.
Yes.
Like they know coming home from a wedding day at 2 a.m, like there's a reason my mom's pretty exhausted the next day.
Yeah.
Like it has really been amazing for them, and to develop the work ethic that I had at an early age. It just so grateful I can pass that on to them. So yeah, we're a big old family affair. And my mom is still heavily involved in the day-to-day.
That's awesome.
She gets to go to Florida in the
even
winter
though,
now.
I was gonna say, even though she retired,
and her friends listening to this podcast.
She doesn't get to retire, does she?
She's semi-retired, I would say. And my husband, he has learned the entrepreneurial journey as well because he did not come from that. His parents were teachers. And he did not know that lifestyle of the high highs and the low lows, and the like taking on all the personal responsibility of everything that you make for your life.
Yes.
And so, he's grown a lot in that as well. So here we are today. I met you in that mastermind that got me through those stages of business, and you and I became friends, and then just decided like, let's work together.
Yeah. How did, just one clarifying question, I guess.
Yeah.
how did that evolve into this? I mean, I know
Yeah.
our story, right? But like, I want to help women,
Yeah.
right, in masterminds. Like, how does that fill all of this too?
That was really, I mean, just wanting to give back. Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I like service-oriented business.
Yes.
I love serving people in the wedding industry.
Yes.
And I've just, learned a lot myself. And so I think I really just felt like I needed to share,
Mm-hmm.
build community around this topic,
Once
right?
again,
Once again, there's themes
community
here.
builders. Yeah.
And so when you and I would talk about like the possibility of it,
Yeah.
it was always like, yeah, duh, of course we should. Why wouldn't we?
Right.
And
And it was so helpful for us.
yeah, and other
Yes.
people in our lives recognize like you guys could be really helpful and share your experiences, and you have that long story too, which you'll share with us as well. And so we knew that like what we had to share could
Yes.
be helpful to others, so why not? And it's just been a really great something different. I look forward to this. It's just different than my day-to-day. And it's been amazing to watch the people that we've helped grow in their own
I
stories.
love that. That's the best part.
Oh my goodness. And that's lasting too, it's and these relationships and just stories that we've grown together through have been amazing. So I think about the next 10 years of life and where that goes. And I mean, gonna have kids graduating from high school soon. We're gonna go down
Crazy.
that path.
Big party.
Well, start planning the party. And how I want to, continue to grow and evolve my businesses for the role
Yeah.
that I want within them.
Yes.
And so I think about that, it's just amazing. Just like the evolution of an entrepreneur, living through it and then thinking about how to help people through that process is rewarding for me for sure.
Agreed.
And I never mentioned my dogs.
Oh. How could we have forgotten?
How could we forget the dogs?
I mean, the babies, the fur babies.
The babies. Yeah. I was a late in life dog lover.
Oh.
My grandfather had a dog that he'd inherited from my uncle. And when he passed away, he said, I really think that Cheech would love living in Minnesota.
Cheech.
This was literally like on his last day. And I'm in Massachusetts with this dog who has attached himself to me. Clearly, we were imprinted on each other in that moment.
Aw.
And I said to my husband, we're bringing this dog home. And we did. And he flew home on the airplane with me.
Aw.
And I instantly found this relief in animals, in dogs, for my mental health, for just all. It just was like a hole in my heart until he came in.
I know.
And
I
now
didn't even know you had it.
I didn't
Right,
even know.
right.
Yeah. And so then he has the little brother whiskey business. That's a whole other thing. That was an interesting choice. But he's darn adorable, and I just love those little guys. So yeah, that was that. And I had an employee who would bring her dog to work, and I was like, I don't get dog people. And then I flew a dog home on a plane, and she was like, now you do. It's like, yeah.
Now I got
Full
it. Yeah.
in. Yes. So
Yeah, and so interesting that so your parents were in Duluth, you're in Duluth, and then your sister.
yeah. So
ended
my
up
sister has followed me every 4 years.
parents.
She comes where I am. She went to college on the East Coast as well. She lived in DC with when I lived there. And then about a year into living in Duluth, her and her husband uprooted their lives and moved here as well.
So
and
wonderful.
so we're really lucky to have the whole family here. And when my parents sent my sister and I to college on the East Coast, they had no expectation we'd ever come back. I mean,
yes.
how could they? How could they
Right,
know,
right.
And we all ended up in Duluth, and we really love it here. And we've built kind of a family compound out there, lake house, that we enjoy spending time in the
So
summers.
fun.
My kids have been able to grow up with that. And yeah, we're just really lucky to be here and love living here. It's
and working.
a pretty magical place.
And the people and yeah.
Yeah.
Great, beautiful events.
And then we travel a lot. We every chance we get, we spend time in other parts of the world, and always happy to come home too. And that's been really important. And prioritizing my own mental health is like getting away from time to time.
Yeah.
Is great for perspective.
Absolutely.
So that's a lot about me. I hope that was insightful to people.
So helpful.
And, just a little bit of why I am the way I am, living through the ups and downs of natural disasters and living away from home.
Yeah. And
building
also,
and closing businesses.
Yes. I feel like that is probably the secret sauce for being someone who can peer coach other entrepreneurs on their journey, because no, I get it. I've done that. I've been there.
Yeah.
You've literally, I get it. I've been there. I've done that. You
Yeah.
know, you've got that story behind you.
And there's plenty that I haven't done and I don't understand.
Right.
But I can empathize and I can, at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, support in whatever ways that I can bring to the table. So yeah, thanks for doing that with me.
Of course. Thank you.
Cheers, friends. You've just finished another episode of the Heart and Soul podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. And if you've loved it, we would love if you'd leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening. You can find links to leave that review in the show notes, where you'll also find other resources that we reference on our show. And if you think a friend could find value in today's episode or any future episodes, please share this episode with them on social media. This is one of the only ways the podcast can organically grow, and we just can't wait to connect with you and all of your besties. You can also find Monique and I on our many social media platforms or our websites, and we're going to leave links to those in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening. We look forward to sharing our hearts and souls with you again next time. With Heart, I'm Mariah.
And with Soul, I'm Monique.